Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Get Busy without Kit and with Jim. So Kit is at the dentist's office this morning having dental work, some sort of emergency dental work done. So she will not be here. But thank you guys for joining us this week. Today's show is going to be epic with our guest, Dustin Stout. First of all, let me give a shout out to our Dream Team panelists this week. We've got Kristen with us and Kirsten with us. Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, how's it going, guys?
Doing well. How are you, Jim? Nice to be here.
Oh, I'm great. Hey Kristen, how's it going?
Great. Wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, so we are so fortunate this week to have as our guest Dustin Stout. So a little bit about Dustin. Last week we had Wade Harmon on the show, and we talked about how to build relationships for the purpose of marketing. And Wade focused on building mutually satisfying long-term relationships, one person at a time, right? And he did that until his marketing business grew and grew and grew, and he achieved the growth through attaining relationships one person at a time. Anyways, this week we're joined by Dustin Stout, who's a branding fanatic, and he's especially on board with the creative aspects of branding. And a little bit about Dustin is he's a web designer, a branding enthusiast, a blogger, social media junkie, and creativity is the fuel of his social media game. And Jesus, I love this. I love when I found this in his bio. Jesus is his homie. That is so cool and so epic. And we'll talk a little bit about that this morning with Dustin. So welcome to the show, Dustin. We're super glad to have you with us here this morning. How's it going?
I am super glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's get right into it. So, typically on the show, Dustin, before we get down to the business, to the Get Busy business, we like to learn a little bit about the guests who are on the show. So if you can take us back to back in the day, back in the time, and tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up. Where did you grow up? And what were some of your biggest influences growing up?
Well, I gotta start by saying, James, every time I hear your show or read the name of the show, the first thing I think of is get busy, just shake that booty non-stop. When the beat drop, just keep swinging it, get jiggy.
I love it.
That song immediately comes to my head, and that relates right to your question because I grew up in the era of when Sean Paul first came onto the scene, and that song was one of my favorite songs in high school. I remember, when I got my first car, I had the CD with it on it, and I would just blast that song driving down the road, thinking I was the coolest thing ever. So yeah, fun fact about Dustin: when he hears "Get Busy," he thinks Sean Paul.
Nice.
So I grew up in small town Pennsylvania. It's a little place called Sharon, a beautiful little town. But ever since I was young, ever since I was as far as I can remember, I've always wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be in the entertainment world, and I loved the stage. I loved the limelight. I loved the attention. I loved the creative aspect of telling stories and compelling people to to have an emotional reaction and a positive reaction and to affect people's lives and bring them joy. I ate all that up. And so as soon as I could, I graduated high school and I moved out to California. So yeah, small town to big town. It was a bit of a shock, and I've never looked back since. Although I do miss everyone from home, and I try to go back at least once a year to to see everybody there. But yeah.
Okay, great. So you're in SoCal now. what do you love most about SoCal, and what
Yeah.
like gets on your last nerve about
Mhm.
living out here?
Well, there's a whole lot to love about SoCal, and mostly the weather. I mean, obviously, every single day is a beautiful summer day for
Totally.
about 360 days a year. There's about 5 days where it's not so hot or sunny. I love that. I love that there's just so much to do. It's so diverse out here. There's so many different kinds of personalities and cultures and just lots of different people. And you know, growing up in a small town, you see a lot of people who are like you, who like the same things you like, who you know, communicate the same way you communicate, who have the same cultural practices, and you know, it becomes very familiar. And I'm not the kind of person that likes to stay inside the familiar. I've always been kind of out of the box, sort of interested in exploring, so to speak, and I've always been interested in things that are different, and I've always needed change. Like most people, they're afraid of change. I thrive on change. So when I came out to LA, big change, everything I've always wanted. Yeah, and you know, there's a whole lot to love about this place. I mean, I can drive an hour south and get to the beach. I can drive an hour north and go snowboarding. So it's kind of the perfect place to be if you're an active person and you know you're interested in a lot of diverse things, and you love diversity, which I do. So there's in that realm, there's a lot to love. But I will say this: I hate how expensive it is to live out here. So one of the things I like to do is I like to make my family and friends aware of how beautiful it is today. So I'll usually start our conversations with, "Man, it's a gorgeous day out here. It's about 85 degrees. Mom, how's the weather out there back home?" "Oh, it's pouring down rain and it's about 45 degrees. Oh, that's a shame." And you know, I bring that up to my friends who recently bought a house, a 4,000 square foot house, and as soon as I say that to them, they go, "Oh yeah, yeah, my mortgage is $400." And I go, so the fact that you know, in order to buy a home, you have to have a small fortune is not the most fun thing. But you know, I try not to complain too much because it is one of the most beautiful places to live in the world.
Hey, I'm with you on that one 1,000%, Dustin. Exact same experience for me. I grew up in the Midwest, not in Pennsylvania, but in Indiana. Very similar. We have the very familiar. You know, we have the even in Indiana we have the Amish, and they're great. It's all good, but man, like you, I just needed that change. I needed to do something different.
Yeah.
And California was it for me for exactly the same reasons that you say. And I do the same exact thing to my friends and family, especially in like January and February. It's like, "Hey guys, yeah, what's the weather?"
My birthday is actually in February, so that's when I get a lot of the phone calls, and man, that's when I lay it on as thick as I can.
Exactly.
Like, "Oh, you just got 4 feet of snow? I'm in the pool right now."
Yeah.
It's so sad too.
Yeah, we got maybe 1/4 of an inch of rain 2 weeks ago, and yeah, darn it, you know, it's sunny again. What the heck am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Right?
It's great.
Hey, so let's jump to, I want to kind of get into your moral compass, because you don't hide the fact that you're a man of faith. Again, I love that you said Jesus is my homie. So I want to talk to you a little bit about why faith is so important in your life. You know, was there one thing that changed in your life that made you become a person of faith, or was it just, you know, pretty much the way you were raised and you stuck to it?
That's a funny story. No one's ever asked me that on a Hangout on Air before. I was brought up in a not Christian home. My parents were not religious by any stretch of the imagination. My stepfather, great guy, super hard worker, wanted nothing to do with the church. He had a Catholic upbringing, and as soon as he was able, he ran from that as quickly as he could. My mom would and my grandma would always tell me to say my prayers at night, but they never really told me what that means. They never showed me what prayer was, and they would mention God every now and then, but I really had no clue who God is, what God was, and my only impression up to the age of 14 of a church was a boring place that religious people go to feel better about themselves. So having that, I again never set foot in a church until I was invited by a friend of mine. Me and my other friend were invited by our friend Joel. I'll never forget it. He invited us to his youth group, and all he said as 14-year-old boys was, there's games, music, and girls. I was like, I'm there.
I'm there.
Let's do this. Why didn't I hear about these youth groups before?
Right.
So we went. It just so happened the church was about a 5-minute walk from my house and my buddy Bob's house. So we went. We had fun. We played games. We listened to music. We saw girls, and we kept going. And eventually, the pastor in charge of everyone, he gave a short message about death. And it just so happened that I struggled with anxiety about dying. What kid struggles with anxiety about dying? I would have nightmares. I would wake up in cold sweats. I would wake my mom up just bawling, saying, "I don't want to die," because I would just think and think and think about how when you die, is it just nothingness? Do you just cease to exist? And it scared the crap out of me. So I'm sitting there in this church with all these kids, and he makes this very poignant question, and he says, "If you were to die right now, what would happen?" And now I'm sitting there in the crowd going, "I don't know." It scares the crap out of me. And he continued to say, "Well, what if there was a way you could know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that if you were to die right now, you would go and live forever in paradise?" And I was like, that would be really cool. If you could convince me of that, I would be happy. So he began telling us about who Jesus was, the man who lived 2,000 years ago. He started with the historical figure and just said, Jesus, blah, 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 told the whole story of Jesus. And then what he did, he died for your sins so that you can be forgiven, you can live forever in heaven. And I was, by the end of what he was saying, something just clicked in me where I was like, why was I never told about this guy? Like, I heard about this Jesus dude and got impressions from other people, but I never knew the real story. And when I heard the real story, something hit me right in the chestal area, and I was convinced. I gave my life to Jesus right then and there, and it was a struggle to leave some of my language choices as a little boy, but it just really made sense to me. And so from I'm kind of an analytical person, so I kind of dug into the historical accuracy, and I just kept going to church. I never got into a lot of trouble as a kid. I was never interested in drinking. I was never interested in smoking. My parents did enough of that for me. I was never interested in drugs, and I was a pretty good, in a general sense of the word, kid. But when Jesus took over, when I decided to say, Jesus is the Lord, Master, Ruler of my life, everything changed, and I had purpose. I renewed strength. I was rid of my anxiety of death, everything kind of changed. And the way that I looked at people, the way that I looked at storytelling, the way that I looked at my acting was completely different, because it wasn't just all about me. It was about something greater. And so, long story short, continue to love Jesus, continue to study the scholarly aspect, the historical aspect of Christianity, and all the reasons, and studied some of the greatest scientists and some of the greatest physicists in the world, and some of the greatest guys like Ravi Zacharias and William Lane Craig, who are just brilliant, the most brilliant minds in the world, and why they believe in Jesus. And man, I just learned so much. Before too long, I became a youth pastor out here in Southern California, so I was pastoring a small flock of teenagers who were just like me, and that's kind of what actually got me into graphic design and branding and social media, oddly enough.
Wow, what an epic story! That's great. Hey, I want to throw it open to our dream team panelists. Do you guys have any questions or comments for Dustin?
I do, Jim.
Go ahead.
I am, first of all, just thrilled. I said this in the green room. I am just crushing on Dustin right now. I've been an admirer of you on G+ for a while, and to find out that you're a person of faith is just solidifies the crush for me. I'm also a person of absolute faith, and it's interesting. Thank you for being so transparent with your story, by the way. That's awesome. That's something that I strive to do as well. So I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I'm really looking forward to learning from you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I try to, I think there's the only way for real growth to happen, and for real joy and just loving what you do requires transparency. If you're always trying to hide who you are, then you're always gonna leave a little bit of something out as far as being truly yourself, and that's it's bondage, and not in the freaky way.
Right.
But I don't like to live in bondage of anything. I like to be completely free, and the only way to be truly free is to be truly transparent. And so that's how I try to live, and encourage other people to do the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Kristen, do you have any comments or questions for Dustin?
Yeah. Well, my dad was a United Methodist minister, so I grew up a preacher's kid. So yeah, I just want to give kudos to you for being who you are. One thing that my dad always taught was that it doesn't matter really what a person believes, as long as they believe and they're true to their heart and their connection with God, or whatever their spiritual connection is. That's what matters. And I think you're just a perfect example of someone who is in tune with themselves and in tune with that connection. And I mean, the first time that I ever took notice of you, I just stumbled upon a blog that you had written in Medium, and it was about the time when you proposed to your wife. And I was just like, wow, he drank grape juice? That is so cool. I could totally follow this guy. And I didn't even know who you were at that point. Then I started like following everything, and then it's like, wow, you're like this big dude over here. So yeah, it's just it carries over, in all the places where you're at, and that's what's branding like a boss.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Great. Hey, great segue, Kirsten. So let's talk about your next favorite, your second favorite topic, which is branding and design. So you told us a little bit about how that all came together for you, but maybe if you'd like to expound on that and then share with us why you're so passionate about branding and design.
Well, I mean, it all started, I was, like I said, I was an artist. I was into the performing arts, but I was also a relatively good sketch artist when I was growing up. For a little bit of time, I actually wanted to be a comic book artist as like a side job, when I was an actor, because I loved comic books. And my friend Bob and I, the guy who went to church with me, we would go every Saturday. We would get some comics and read them, and we would try to draw them. We would have all these our own comic book characters. But so for a long time I was very artsy. Well, all my life I was artsy, and in I think it was around 10th or 11th grade, I had a really great relationship with the high school art teacher, Mr. Enoch, and he would give me hall passes for my study study period. And I would go to his office, and he would just let me play on his computer, and he had Photoshop. So I would start messing with Photoshop just for fun. And didn't really pick it up until after college. I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and studied acting, and right down in the heart of Hollywood. And like I said, I found myself working at my church as the youth pastor, and I realized, I instinctually knew a few things about branding, and I knew that if you want to create a group that people can rally behind, that people can take ownership of, then you need to put a name to it. You need to give it some sort of symbol that they can kind of latch onto. And so I realized, okay, I got to create a name. I got to create some sort of logo that the kids are gonna like. And well, I guess we need a website too. So I don't know how to do that, but I guess I can figure it out. And so I basically started very basic with my graphic design branding skills, with just a few instinctual things that I understood. And I started on Wix.com, which you can create a free website on. And I created my first Wix website, just basically drag and drop. And I had Photoshop, so I would play with that all the time. And I came up with a logo and sort of a general brand identity style. And I just started going from there. And before I knew it, I really had a knack for it. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Okay, that's a lie. I'm a lot of a perfectionist. And so, I would just tweak and tweak and tweak until it was like, super pristine. And so I just started doing it, and I did it for my youth group. All of a sudden, somebody noticed and said, "Hey, did you do all that for the youth group? That's really awesome. You think you can do that for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can do that for you." And it was my friend Dale Penn, who is one of my clients today, and he was my first client. And he goes, "Cool. So how much do you charge?" And I thought, that's an interesting idea. Charge. So that was my first experience with that. And Dale ended up, teaching him a little bit about blogging, and I do ongoing consulting with him for social media, and he's an author and a speaker, so he's constantly needing different things, and I forever thank him for kind of opening my eyes to the fact that, hey, I could use these skills to make income. Oh, look, Nicholas Cardot is here. That's awesome. Sorry, OCD or ADD, but OCD as well.
OCD, ADD, right?
OCD. I've got all the whatever the word is, acronyms going for me. But yeah, that's kind of it. So I started with my first client while I was still a youth pastor, and I kind of gained some word of mouth from there, and I just kept doing what I loved. I really loved building a brand, because for me it was about helping someone to tell their story. And again, going back to the acting side of me, I love telling stories and compelling people to have emotional reactions and emotional journeys. And that's essentially what every brand is. It's being able to tell whatever your story is in a way that compels people to take part in it. And one of my cornerstone principles that I teach and that I operate from is that branding is telling your story, marketing is compelling people to take part. So that's kind of where I balance things as far as my work and just how I think about things, and the branding and marketing need to absolutely work together. And but if you don't start with a great brand, a great identity, which is far more than the visuals, then your marketing is never going to be as solid as it needs to be.
So, hey, Dustin, what are some tips you can give to our audience members if they want to brand like a boss, right? What are some tips? What are some beginner tips, and maybe a few even more advanced tips that you can give them so they too can brand like a boss, even if you're like graphically challenged like I am? Mm-hmm. There's obviously a way to do it. So what are some things that our audience can do to be like, to channel their inner Dustin Stout?
Well, the first thing you want to do is decide what you are accomplishing. So every business person knows you need to come up with a mission statement or a vision statement of some sort. Think of that as the one sentence or maybe the two sentences, as short as you can possibly say, this is what we do, but then add a second part of, and this is who we do it for. So this is what we do, this is who we do it for, and say it in the the most simple and succinct way possible, because simplicity is easy to remember. The most powerful stories in the world are simple, and within simplicity lies confidence and power. So try to refine your message, refine your identity by finding what it is you do, who it is you serve, what your mission is, who you're saving. A lot of times I use the superhero analogy, back from the comic book side of me. Superheroes are some of the best brands in the world. They're some of the most memorable brands. Think of every superhero as a brand. They have a set number of skills. They're known for one thing that they do, usually, or that the skill set working towards something, and they're heroes. And there's something about getting behind the hero and taking part in their story and rooting for the hero. But when it comes to branding a business, understand that your customer is your hero, and you're doing everything you can to help them accomplish what they're needing to accomplish. So you have to identify them first. Who is your hero? Who is your audience? And what is it you do to help them on their journey? So once you've identified that, once you know beyond a shadow of a doubt who it is, who you serve, then you can start to craft a visual identity around it. There's some basic principles that I think anyone can follow. And number one is colors. Stick to 2 colors maximum. One highlight, one lower, darker color, and then maybe some neutrals. Whites, grays, blacks. Stick to the neutral colors, and then have 2, very distinct colors, and stick with only those colors. Now there are some brands out there that kind of break the rules, like Google. They've got 5 different colors. Microsoft has 5 different colors. But think of Apple. Gray, black, white, neutrals. Think of what's another good one? Nike. Nike's kind of ubiquitous. They kind of stick to the neutrals, but they kind of made themselves able to branch out anywhere to any colors. But whenever you see the Nike symbol, it's either white or black. You think of, oh gosh, what's a good one? Visa, blue and yellow. I'm just looking at my table here. AT&T is now blue, white, orange. Blue and orange. 2 primary colors and some neutrals. So find the colors that psychologically or emotionally represent your brand in some way. And that's kind of a weird thing to think about, but psychologically there are certain colors that tie into certain psychological responses, and I've written extensively about this in a number of different arenas. But I can put the link in the chat here, or in the event page, but if anybody's interested in it. But colors communicate a psychological connection, so and you need to be aware of that. So if you're, for instance, if you're trying to communicate excitement or youthfulness or ambition, orange is a color that's generally associated with those traits. So you might want to pick an orange and stick with it. So once you find a color palette, stick with it. Do not add in any other color. Be super vicious about, these are our colors and this is how we'll be recognized. And then, the simpler the better with your logo. Again, simplicity is key to being remembered.
Right. So benchmark off of what you're doing. So one of your primary colors is red. So tell us maybe a little bit of the psychology behind that, Dustin. Why you chose red and what some of the psychology is behind that.
Yeah. So red, psychologically, they've done studies on this. It's fascinating. Red, when we see the color red, it actually increases our heart rate. It's an exciting color. It's an attention-getting color. That's why you see alerts that are in red, and you see stop signs that are in red, because they get your attention. So a lot of what I was doing for my brand was all about helping people to get attention online, social media, and creativity, and to make things exciting. Because I hate things that are boring, and maybe it's the ADD side of me. Like, I have to be, it has to be fun and it has to be exciting for me to really want to do it. So psychologically that worked. It also just so happened that red was my favorite color. So it just kind of fit really well, and I stuck with it. And you'll hear my son in the background. That's Judah. He really loves Hangouts on Air, and he wanted to join, but unfortunately he's just wearing a diaper, and I told him that's just not proper attire.
Right. That's awesome. I love it.
So red worked for me for the attention aspect psychologically, but selfishly it was my favorite color.
I love it. Yeah, it's nice when it all kind of comes together like that. So again, I'm going to throw out to the panelists. So is anything that Dustin has said, guys, does it resonate with you, and did it spark any questions in your mind? And Christine, I saw you threw up a comment from somebody. Do you have that?
I do. We have a question from the Dream audience, Nicholas Cardo.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I hope I pronounced his name right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
And he loves it when you say Cardo, though.
Right.
Oh, well.
So the question is, how do you deal with a client who refuses to take your professional advice and continuously wants to pursue things they think are neat ideas for their branding? Oh boy, that's a loaded. Leave it to Nick to throw out a loaded question for you.
It is a loaded question. I'll thank him later for that. But this has happened plenty of times. Anyone who's a creative understands working with people who are not creative in the same way. So I believe everyone's creative. I don't care if you're a designer, if you're an accountant, if you're a mathematician, if you're a scientist. You are a creative being because you were created in the image of a creator. So that said, I just kind of explain things as I'm a different kind of creative than my clients. So a lot of times, people will have ideas for their brand, their identity, what they think, but in most cases, I have the experience, I have the training, I have the knowledge, the wisdom, whatever that is. I've studied this stuff for a long time, and despite any and all attempts to rationally explain my choices as an artist, for a logo or for a color palette, sometimes they just don't want to take the advice. The target audience is males in a certain age range, and for some reason I give a number of palettes that really work well among males, based on study and research, but for some reason they want pink and purple and baby blue in their colors. And there's one point where I go, here's all the wisdom I have. I advise completely against this, and if that's not what they want, then ultimately it's their story, and they own the right to say what goes or not. So in that case, I will let the client go, because first and foremost, I have to maintain my level of quality, my level of skill. I have to stay true to who I am and to who I'm created to be. And let's be honest, we all as business owners have a reputation to consider. So when a client is determined to do something that is completely against my advice, then I just let them go. I say, look, we're obviously not a good fit. My advice is not the advice that you want to take. So I will not invoice you. I'm not going to send you the final invoice. You can have everything we've done up to now, but I'm afraid we'll have to go our separate ways. So
has that actually happened?
Yes.
You? Really?
Yeah, several times. Several times. And they've gone on to do great things. They've gone on to tell their story, and I don't really keep tabs on most of them, but I've had to fire a few clients in my days, and it's not fun, but it is what it is.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's kind of amazing to me because normally one would think when you go to hire somebody to help you to do something, you're hiring them for their expertise.
Yeah.
And then you're not listening to them. And I get it. I totally get the whole, I'm the entrepreneur. I want to do it my way. But if that's the case, then, why bring somebody on there?
People really just want to hire people that will validate their perspective. And unfortunately, if you decide to hire me, if your perspective is in line with what I know to be true and what I what my experience has taught me, then sure, I'll validate your ideas all day long. But if they're contrary to data and contrary to research and all the knowledge that I've accumulated, I'm sorry, I'm not going to validate you. I'm going to be honest and transparent.
Right. Hey,
wrong.
Hey, Dustin. So, do you have a success story where it was starting to go maybe in that direction, but you pulled them back and they were able to kind of see the light?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've had a whole lot of clients who, who for one recognize why they're hiring me, and it's only been a really small handful of clients who just refuse to take my advice. Excuse me. But in most cases, a lot of people just kind of go with whatever I say. I've been, like I said, really fortunate to have some really great clients, and there have been times where, say I picked a color palette. Usually it happens around color palettes. I don't know why. But they say, I really don't like this color palette. Why would you pick these colors? But I'm of the I feel like artists have the brunt of the responsibility in explaining themselves. I've said this on a couple of podcasts before that if you're an artist, say you're working for an art organization, you're the designer, and you have to present these designs to your superiors, and they don't like them, it's your job to communicate why you made those decisions. Because if you can't explain why you made the choices you made, then odds are they're not great choices. You can't just say, I picked this because it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it look good? Why does this shade of blue work better than this shade of green? You should be able to explain that as an artist. And I take every bit of care in crafting these color palettes. I make the choices I make for significant reasons. And so I try to communicate my best. And in most cases, once I communicate the choices I made and why I made them, usually the client, they have an aha moment, like, oh, that makes sense, yeah. And I always kind of offer several different options, and within those options, generally they like at least one of them.
That's awesome. Hey, since you're here on my show, I'm going to take full advantage of having you as a guest and talk to you about one of my biggest challenges. So one of my biggest challenges is actually blogging. Okay, I just can't focus well on blogging. And one specific challenge that I have when I do blog, when I do get the unction to go ahead and create and write a blog, I really struggle with finding the right graphics, doing the right thing to the graphics to make it like align with the blog. I mean, I really Dustin, I can spend like easily an hour and a half or 2 hours just stressing over finding the right graphics, and sometimes when it's done, it looks okay, but it's just okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some tips for graphically challenged people like me to find the right graphic to go with your story and to kind of tart it up, sexy it up, and make it really work?
That's a great question. I'm actually, I think it's tomorrow, I'm going to be on the Business Spotlight with Stepan Hovnanian and Ben Fisher, and we're going to be talking about that exactly. I did a presentation in Las Vegas, a 5-minute presentation about all the the best tips for creating graphics, and I'll be sharing that tomorrow on their show. One thing that I can say though, because I was in your shoes, believe it or not, a long time ago, and real quick, I have to highlight this comment from Nicholas Cardot.
Yeah, go.
He says, it's not fun to create something on which you can't put your signature of excellence. Gosh,
nice.
that speaks to me so much, because, I mean, really, everything that I create, everything that you create, everything that Kristen, you create, everything that you create, Christine, it should have our signature of excellence. And that's why sometimes I have to let clients go and pursue other partnerships, because I cannot afford to create anything that does not have my signature of excellence, and
right.
Rightfully so, you don't either, and that's probably why you toil and pain so much over your graphics, because you want it to be your signature of excellence. So give you some quick tips on that. So I was in your shoes. and I would spend hours and days and nights and tears over trying to find the right images for my my blog posts or my marketing materials or whatever. The key is really finding your style, finding what it is you like and what kind of fits your content, and finding something that you can do consistently. So instead of every time starting from scratch and going, all right, now what? Where am I going to begin? What am I looking for? So I would recommend find a number of websites where you can find images and stick to those websites, the ones that are the easiest for you to use. I have a list of my favorite places, the best places to find free images online. Those are my go-to sites. I actually only use probably 5 of them now for the most part, and if I can't find anything there, then I'll go elsewhere. But you want to try and streamline, make it a process, and use tools that are familiar to you, because that's the ones you'll be the most efficient with. And give yourself a time limit. One thing that's helped me extremely in both my work life, now working from home full time, is being extremely disciplined with my time. So I only have 15 minutes to create an image.
Nice.
Maximum. So I know that if I spend any more than 5 minutes looking for the photograph that's going to be the background, then I'm in trouble. So give yourself a time limit, and then just resolve that whatever at that end of that time limit, whatever you got, that's what you got, and you use it. So it's super easy. Like, even if you can't find an image, Peg Fitzpatrick is really, really great at this. She uses a blurred out effect. In Canva, you can import a photo, and you can use the editing controls to make it really blurry, so to the point where even the photo is not even distinguishable. So literally, you can use any photo. It can be a photo of a woolly mammoth, eating a raw fish, but it'd be blurred out so much that you would, and then you just throw your text over it, whatever your core text is, and again, keep the message simple. So if you're doing a blog graphic, you want to, your headline is probably all you want to put on there, and maybe a hashtag if you're really, if you got a hashtag going. But try to keep it simple. Be efficient with your time. Use tools that you know, and you'll get into a rhythm. It takes some practice. It takes some consistency, but you'll find your rhythm. And I recommend Canva as an editing tool for doing all that. But PicMonkey also works well for a lot of people. Another one that I'll use if I'm on the go is Pixlr, Pixlr.com. It's another good one to use if you don't have Photoshop. So find the right tools. Be obsessive about your time management.
Yeah, you know what? That's great advice, Dustin, and you've inspired me now to. My background is engineering, so I'm a process systems and process guy, and I agree with you 100%. My creativity doesn't come out in artistic form, but it comes in a different manner, right? And I couldn't agree with you more that we all have the ability to be creative. We just manifest it in a different way. But you inspired me to figure it out and sort it out for blogging, because I too am working on a website. I'll have it up and ready to go in about a month, and once that bad boy gets up, I'm gonna have to blog weekly. Panelists, any questions or comments or statements you guys have?
I'm just in total learning mode. If I repeat anything, it would just be repeating what Dustin shared. Just tremendous value. Branding is so very important, especially as entrepreneurs online. So you're speaking to my heart, and I'm sure you're really impacting a lot of entrepreneurs today.
Thank you. Yeah, branding is important. A lot of people, I tell people not to get hung up on the logo because that's kind of where people freeze. And the key is, the reason branding is important is because it's something that people can latch onto. Just like back in my youth ministry days, I realized people need something to latch onto, but they also need consistency, and that builds trust. So if you're a business owner you're you're striving to build trust with your clients, with your customers, with your partners. Trust is worth more than anything, and a strong brand identity, something that's consistent. I'm talking super consistent, will build trust more than anything. So even if it's a bad logo, a bad color palette, a bad brand identity, if there's any such thing, as long as you're consistent, that's all that matters. You can always refine it and relaunch it and rehash it, but consistency builds trust, and trust is what businesses are built on.
Hey, yeah, that's great advice, Dustin. What if somebody realizes that, you know what, I've been running my business for, say, 10 years now, and boy, when I started out, I really didn't know a whole lot about branding, and my branding right now really just sucks, okay? And I want to rebrand myself. What would you recommend that somebody in that position do to rebrand themselves?
Well, aside from hiring me,
right. Step one, right?
Take a drink for dramatic pause.
Yes.
I would say exactly what I say to every client is I say, figure out what it is you do, who it is you serve. Start with that and simplify that message as much as you possibly can. When I say simplify, I don't mean dumb it down. I mean communicate it as efficiently and as effectively as possible. Find your message. And that's the hardest part, because what a lot of business owners want to do, myself included, I'm not excluded from this, is they want to reach the widest audience possible. They want to say, my target market is women and men 5 years old to 105 years old.
Right.
That's not your target market.
That narrows it down.
Yeah, that is not your target. You want to narrow it down. I mean, you want to get so super specific with who you're trying to serve that, and you don't have to, consider it a niche or niche, as it's supposed to be pronounced. You don't have to niche yourself into anything, but be as specific as you can. A big business term right now is an avatar. Create an avatar for your ideal customer, your ideal client. And I say, sure, if that works, avatar, whatever, that sounds kind of weird. But find out who it is you're serving. Identify some real-life people who are examples of who you're serving. One of the things that has taken my blogging to a different level is when I realized that my best writing is when I'm writing to a specific person. So every blog post that I write, the reason it's communicated the way it's communicated is because I have someone particular in mind that I'm writing it to. I'm not writing it to an audience of 50,000 or 100,000. I'm writing it to an audience of one. And that personal touch, that resonates with a lot of people. You think by closing off your sight line will somehow restrict your growth, but in fact it makes the message more personal and it makes it more consumable because people can hear that tone in your voice. So find a specific person or a specific group of people that you want to serve, craft your message for them, then find a graphic designer who's willing to create a visual identity for you around that message.
Right, and then like you said, once you have the message targeted, be consistent with it.
Yes, exactly. Be consistent, super consistent, and resist all urges to get creative with the messaging.
Hey, Dustin, what would you say are the top 3 mistakes people make around branding?
Man, the top 3?
Well, several. A couple, several, top 3.
Yeah. No, the top 3 is fine. I would say inconsistency is number 1. Well, I guess that would start with not knowing exactly who your brand is or what your brand is about. That would be the biggest mistake, is not figuring out that core principle. And because of that mistake, not getting super specific, then they make the mistake of inconsistency, being inconsistent, and people can never really latch onto something, and so your business seems shifty and shaky and unpredictable. And so people tend to not trust as much. And I guess the third mistake is making it way too complicated, making it way too hard for people to grasp, because your mission statement is 3 paragraphs long.
Exactly. And what is the result of that? What happens to your brand and to your business when you make those kind of mistakes?
Well, you tend to grow slower. Your fans tend to be a little less engaged than if you were to be consistent. It's really difficult to rally up brand ambassadors and advocates for your brand when they don't have something solid to lock onto. So advocacy becomes very difficult. Social media becomes very difficult, and building that audience that's loyal and repeating and will follow you no matter what is very, very difficult when your brand identity isn't something they can easily latch onto and easily share.
Totally. Yeah, I agree 100%. Hey, last week we had Wade Harmon on our show. Wade was awesome, and we asked him to do a throwdown because we knew you were coming on the show this week, and I also knew that you and he were kind of buds, so he challenged you to a throwdown. So do you want to talk a little bit about the throwdown and how you addressed that throwdown?
Sure. I didn't hear about the throwdown until yesterday. I've been so busy. So sorry, Wade. I love Wade, by the way. He's one of the greatest people. Just so intentional about relationships and such a good guy. Good guy. Wade, all that said, I love you. But what I was going to do is I was actually going to use Photoshop. It just so happened that my license for Photoshop is up for renewal, and I hadn't renewed it yet, so I didn't have the ability. But if you could imagine with me, when I heard that challenge from Wade Harmon, it kind of to me seemed a little bit like this, sort of like John Cena just challenged The Rock to a wrestling match. And when he was expecting a throwdown, I'm very sorry, Wade, but it would have, in fact, been just a smackdown. So, lucky for you, The Rock didn't have to lay the smackdown on your candy face.
I love it. Way to bring it, Dustin. Like, way to bring it.
I wish I could. Oh man, that Photoshop job would have been great. Putting my head on The Rock's body and Wade's head on John Cena. Maybe I'll do it. Once I renew my license here later today.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of throw out that challenge to you. If you could do that, whenever you get your license renewed, and I know you're super busy, but if you get a spare few minutes and you need to get into a creative space, get the creative juices flowing. If you could do that, that would be epic, and then add it into the comment section here. That
Sure,
would be epic.
I definitely will. How does a graphic designer not have his license renewed for Photoshop? Gosh, talk about terrible timing.
Right. Well, you know what, Dustin, you're kind of busy, right? You got a lot going on. So let's talk about. Yeah, so let's talk about some of the things that you've got going on, and I think there are a couple of new projects that you're bringing to the forefront. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so aside from managing several brands here on Google+, I work with a company called Steady Demand, who is very prominent, Ben Fisher, Stepan Hovnanian, who are also part of the company. It's a Google+ marketing company, and I manage several of our client accounts. So that keeps me pretty busy throughout most days. And, I also have my own blog that I'm maintaining. It's a little tricky to do with all else going on. And actually, this Friday will be the beginning, sort of a teaser phase of a much bigger project, a much bigger evolution of the Dustin.tv brand. And this Friday, I'll be releasing the first of a series of weekly videos that will... well, I'll let you watch the videos and you'll see what it's about. But that is the first step.
Will we see the first video on Friday or just a teaser?
First video will be on Friday, but this whole video series is just a sort of a teaser to a much bigger project that will be unveiled this coming fall. Big evolution for Dustin.tv. Super excited about it. But you know, a lot has to happen in order to make it, you know, really awesome. But this Friday, tune in. Make sure you subscribe to the Dustin.tv YouTube channel. So it's youtube.com/DustinTV. And so that big project. Also working on something with Nicholas Cardot and with Jason Weiser. We're creating a WordPress plugin based on our experience, and well, mostly my experience, because I've had some frustrating experiences with social sharing plugins for WordPress, and there's a lot of them out there. I'm a big fan of Dig, and Flare, I think, is one of the really popular ones right now. But you know, for me, there's certain things that I hold dear and true. Obviously, I'm a branding nut, and quality is like, you know, the driving force of everything that I do and put out there in the world. So I felt the need to create a social sharing plugin that was not only beautiful, that was not only super functional, but it was just packed with features under the hood that people could use to enhance their social media distribution. So we're in beta right now. It's a bit of a beast. It's, you know, projects like this are always bigger than you imagine they can be. But we're working furiously to get the bugs out of this plugin for our beta testers, and to get this WordPress plugin into the market. It will be a premium plugin, and we're deciding on the price point, what works best for all of our audience. And it's going to be a really awesome plugin. I'm super excited about it. And you can go to Dustin.tv now and see it live. All the social share buttons, you'll see them. They follow you down the screen. It's really pretty. So that as well, and I think that's it. I mean, what else can a person possibly do when he's got a family?
Yeah, that sounds like enough. You know what? I'm chomping at the bit. I don't know if you need any other beta testers, but if you do, I volunteer, and if you don't, I'll just keep watching and waiting until this beast gets unleashed. I remember talking to Nick, actually probably several months ago, about this, and I was already kind of chomping at the bit then. And it'll be nice with me getting a new website up and running to have a good plugin with regards to the social share. So I know with you guys working on it, I have no doubt that it'll be epic. And so, Dream Team audience, stay tuned. Check Dustin's site out for that and see what it does, and I'm sure it'll be epic. So hey, as we're getting close to closing out the show, Christine, any last thoughts, words of wisdom, takeaways from today's show?
Wow, my biggest takeaway is really a reaffirmation for me, where Dustin, you shared that we are all creators because we're created in the image of a creator. That's something that I firmly believe, and that's what stood out for me the most today, your story and your connection between the creator and our creativity. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Nice. Hey, Kristen?
Yeah, I love that one too. That was a great one. I guess the other one that I was thinking of was when you were saying to make your client the hero and find out like what their strengths are and how you can support them. That was amazing to me.
That is amazing. And hey, Dustin, as we close out, any last parting words of wisdom for our audience?
Gosh, go be awesome and don't expect less of yourself.
Yeah, great, Dustin. Hey, I want to personally thank you so much for coming on today. Another epic Get Busy show. What other show starts out with our guests kind of getting down, getting busy with it? I love it. That was.
I gotta go listen to it now. As soon as this is over, I'm headed to YouTube.
Hey, you can carry a tune. I can't. So I love it when our guests come on and bring their artistic flair, because you know, I lack in that. So I live vicariously through all of you artists.
Another not so well-known fact about Dustin W. Stout is musical theater was a big part of my performing arts career.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what? I admire you guys because where would our country be, and where would we be in the creative space, without talent that you guys bring? So I can't thank you enough, for what it is that you do and what you bring to our world. And again, thank you for being here. Next week, we're going to have Jenny Lynn. She lives in Chicago, and she and her husband have started up an incubation share space type of a business. So she's going to come on next week and tell us all about that and what it's like living in Chicago, Illinois. So we're looking forward to having her next week, and encourage everyone to get out there. Like Dustin said, be awesome, get busy, do your thing, and we'll see you here next week. Thank you, guys.